1 minute.
And then you've got I got all your food right. But I just think, what do you want?
Maybe I shouldn't have this water up here.
You can have a beer up here if you want.
No, we won't do that.
Mark.
Well,
There you go. Might as well.
I'll be sponsor friendly.
There you go.
We got both in the picture.
I just got to label out, right?
They keep getting away from each other. It must be the breath or something. Are they both in? Well, that's what.
Do we need to get closer?
He's got a camera to take care of it. He's got 2 cameras, so
Oh wow,
it's
you got
big time stuff.
quite a setup here.
When Mark was last here, we had candlelight and a
I
hand
know.
crank.
I know. T. Edison was all over it.
Yeah. Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2018 show, presented by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Verizon IndyCar Series, and SVRA. I got a couple of things I want to mention. How many? First off, I got to start. Last week I introduced the 2 new servers, Brittany and Brenda. I completely neglected to mention the beer tender and mixologist DB, who volunteered for this job because he wanted to be here on Tuesday nights. He's a glutton for punishment, but he's good, and thank you. How many watched the race from Alabama? Oh, yeah. Bob did in the rain. How was it? Wet, yeah. Turned out to be a pretty interesting race, I thought, overall. And for those of you who didn't notice, Honda finished the top 15. They had 10. So they're doing very, very well. And I think it's going to be very interesting when they get to the Speedway because they've been pretty good there the last 4 or 5 years. Want to mention that I have several guests in line for next week. I'm not sure all who they are. However, how many people knew there was an art gallery in downtown Speedway? Oh, they did. We're going to have a lady come in next week and talk about that. And one of the featured artists' name is Jim Swindell. His wife, Diane, is the PR gal with the Mazda Road to Indy program, and he's in race control for both IndyCar and for IMSA. So we're going to talk about that, and hopefully I can talk him into bringing a picture or 2 of his because it's really good art, actually. Also want to mention your favorite doctor's appointment. It's got to be the dentist. Well, I highly recommend one that you won't hide. You want to go to. It's the Indy Dental Clinic. Dr. Jack Miller and Dr. Liz Lewis have got a phenomenal practice. Make an appointment. Give them a call, 317-846-6125. And if you have computer problems like I do, it's like a cold. I can never get rid of them. You got to call Jack at Computer Overdrive. They're located on the northeast corner of Lyndhurst and Crawfordsville Road on a little frontage road. Give them a call. Tell them your problem. Make an appointment. Number's 317-328-0766. And if you're interested in drones, go to the back half of the shop. See Mark. He'll tell you all about it. Coming this Thursday, it's the Behind the Wheel Racing into Indy program, downtown Speedway at the Dallara building. It starts at 4:30 to 5, and you'll be in the Dallara factory building, networking, snacks, cocktails, and more. And 5 to 5:20 at the factory, Doug Bowles will make a few comments. And from 5:25 to 6:25, half of the group will go to the Foyt shop across the street, and the other half will go back to the back in the Dallara building to see the new car and what it's about, what's going on. And then from 6:30 to 7:30, you'll switch. And from 7:40 to 8:30, you're going to go to the 1911 Grill. There'll be prizes and closing remarks by Sarah Fisher. At the end of the program, for those who haven't won anything recently, I just happen to have a pair of tickets. Come and see me after the program. Now, get down to business. I've done enough fooling around. I'm going to start with a gentleman on the end who's been here several times. He is a graduate with a bachelor's degree in business management and film, and I'm going to audition, from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. and he went for his master's degree at the Ohio State University. He came to Indianapolis and came to work for IndyCar, and he's been there for a number of years, moving up the ladder. And I got to tell you, as I may have said before, when he first came here, the people he replaced didn't have a very good reputation, and dumb me called him and said, how is this going to work? And when he got done talking, whenever anybody would say, we need help with a possible sponsor, and I said, go to IndyCar. No, we've been that route. I said, trust me. And every single time that they trusted me foolishly and went there, the report came back, you're absolutely right, he helped us. He's been a great boon, I think, to IndyCar and very helpful to everybody and done a great job. He is now the Chief of Staff for IndyCar. Please welcome my long best friend, Mark Sibla.
Thank you.
The gentleman sitting next to him has reminded me that I've met him several times, chatted with him, threatened to bring him on the program. He always managed to dodge me. He's the Vice President of Promoter and Media Partner Relationships for IndyCar. He manages IndyCar schedule development, which is why one of the reasons I got him here, including the identification of new race venues, and negotiates agreements with the promoters who control the tracks at which IndyCar races. He also serves as the primary business contact for IndyCar to all promoters and track personnel in the Verizon IndyCar series, and he is responsible for telecast scheduling, media partner agreements, as well as serving as IndyCar's lead point of contact for its media partners. And he got stuck with me tonight. I am very happy to have him here because, as everybody has read, there is a new contract with NBC. And when I was asked, what does it mean, I said, I haven't a clue. So we're going to find out for him. Please welcome Mr. Steven Starks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mark, my first foolish question.
Okay.
Of all the jobs you've had, what is the Chief of Staff? What is that? What do you do?
Yeah, it's an interesting title. I report to Jay Fry, President, Competition and Operations. So I sit on the competition and operations side of the business, work a lot with our engineers, work a lot with our tech team, and a lot of it is the business-related elements. As you mentioned, when I came over to IndyCar, I was on the commercial side of the business, worked a lot with the teams on sponsorship, worked with our sales group. When Jay made the move over to President, I reached out to him a few months later and said, hey, I love what I'm doing, but would love to make a switch, learn a little bit more of that side of the business, and I love it. Came over, worked with people like Bill Pappas and Tino on the design of the new car that we were talking about. So I'll help them a lot with the business aspects of it, looking out for the cost structure, how's that impacting our teams, are we able to look at that over a 5-year period, and so forth. So in essence, it's kind of the business side of competition.
Well, you have degrees and a master's in business, but I saw this first time you were here, it said from North Carolina, Wilmington, you got a degree in business management and film.
Yes.
What part of the film world did you get a degree in?
It was probably not surprising. It was more on the production side, so behind the camera. And understanding, what are all those aspects that go into developing a movie, right? There's a lot, everything from permits that you need to have where you're filming to casting to SAG agreements and all kinds of stuff like that. So it was something, I wanted to do something fun while I was in college as well, not just business management. And so they were filming this TV show called Dawson's Creek, and I thought, well, that'll be kind of cool to hang around. So that's what got me involved.
Great show, by the way.
Wonderful, yes. So that's what got me involved in that aspect of it, and I think I've always been intrigued with businesses in which people, kind of go and spend their discretionary money, right? You don't have to go to a movie theater. I'd like to believe that you have to go to a race, but I guess you technically don't need to. But it's something that makes you excited, makes you happy, creates memories, and I've always been interested in that line of the business.
You went to the Ohio State University.
I get a lot of grief for that.
No heckling.
Who woke him up? I thought he was napping. Howdy, I put you in charge of booers, and where are you? Are you still a Buckeye?
Yes. I grew up in Ohio. My mom worked at Ohio State, so I think it was ingrained in me.
I see. Mm-hmm. Huh. So who do you cheer for when they play IU? Ohio State.
Yeah, yeah. But I do cheer for IU every other game. It's
you
a
want them
great
to come
school.
in second when they play Ohio State, right?
Exactly. No, it's a great school. There's only one university I don't care for, and I'm sure we can guess where that's at. So
Maybe. But I don't want to get into it. Somebody will boo me then if I start saying anything. Stephen, you are an attorney.
Correct. Don't hold it against me.
Oh, I'm trying not to, really. I have found since talking with you that it's not true what they say about attorneys.
I'm afraid to ask what they say.
When your lips move, they're probably telling you a story. What, when you got out of school, you didn't come to the racing world. What did you do for the first part of your career?
Sure. Well, I spent a lot of my law practice time at law firms, and then I was in-house counsel for the United States Anti-Doping Agency, where I prosecuted Olympic, drug testing cases.
Really?
Out in Colorado Springs. And we're just talking sports suspensions, violation of the anti-doping rules. And then I jumped back into sports and entertainment in a broader sense. Represented a lot of professional teams and leagues, and then represented some professional athletes from NFL players to professional soccer players, and did a lot of sports sponsorship and media deals, including promotional deals. Like I was involved in bringing a big soccer match back in August of 2013 to Lucas Oil. So just had kind of a broad portfolio of sports and entertainment work. Was the bulk of my career before I joined Hallman and Company.
Now, as people may have noticed, you're not the smallest guy in the room. When you were in school,
I don't know. Is that true? I mean,
yeah. Did you play any sport when you were in college?
I did. I played college basketball at Drexel University in Philadelphia. Then I played in the NBA Development League in Columbus, Georgia, and then played 2 professional seasons abroad.
Really?
A little bit.
What do you mean a little bit? A little bit really, or a
little bit of basketball.
Oh. Are you a Pacer fan?
Yeah, I like the Pacers.
Oh, okay. I was gonna get carried away there for a minute. I'm from Chicago, and guess where the Bulls are? But the strange thing about that has anything to do with it. As bad as the Bulls are the last couple of years, every night 22,000.
Yeah, that's the way
I
it
don't
is.
get it. Anyway, now you came to work at Hallman and Company, and
Sure.
you've had a number of positions with them. How did you end up at IMS Productions?
I'm not at IMS Productions. I'm at
That's
IndyCar.
what I said. You're not there.
Maybe one day. But I started at Hallman and Company as the Deputy General Counsel. So I was the number 2 lawyer for the parent company, and did a lot of the big event legal work, sports sponsorships. And then I kind of transitioned and started doing more and more of the IndyCar sanction agreements, which was a good training for my current role. In the promoter element, but doing the deals on the back end, Mark Miles, whom I report to, decided that it might be a good opportunity for me to go and learn the business side of IndyCar by kind of being the front forward face of the promoter relationships that we have, because I was already negotiating the promoter sanction agreements on the back end. And so after 2 years in the legal department, I got the opportunity to go join the business side of IndyCar, and was doing that for about 2 years and trying to improve our promoter relations and, working on the development of the schedule, as you alluded. And then when Robbie Green stepped down from being the president of IMS Productions, they decided that was an opportunity to move out of IMSP, the IndyCar relationships with the media partners, ABC and NBC. Because Robbie just had those deep relationships, he was doing it from IMSP, but in the perfect world, you'd like to see an IndyCar person working on the media partners, since it's an IndyCar deal. And so about a month ago, maybe a little bit over a month ago now, in addition to my promoter relations role, Mark decided that he would put me in charge of the media partner relationships for IndyCar. So I've been doing that now. That's added to my title.
Now, the reason I said something about you being with IMS, I called when the NBC agreement basic was announced. I said to him, I called him. I said, Robbie, I got a problem. He said, what's that? I don't understand. He said, well, I can't help you. Why? I've resigned. Did you get the notice? No, so he sent it to me. By golly, you did.
Sure.
Resign, that is. He said, you need to talk to Kevin Sibla. So here I am calling, who are you? Don K. Oh, boy. And I said, I'd like to talk about the contract. He
Sure.
said, fine. So I contacted him the next week, and I said, can you do it on such and such a date? He said, well, I'm going to put this to you, Stephen Starks. I said, now, who is that?
So basically, he's telling the room that I was your third option. That's
It wasn't mine. I was.
maybe not even the third option. You were directed to me.
That's exactly.
It's great to be here, Don. Thank you for having me.
Thank Kevin. When you go back to the office tomorrow, you can say, you know what you did to me? Ugh. So, you have been involved in all the negotiations with NBC and ABC, start to finish so far.
Not start to finish. You know, we were doing this long
Yeah,
before
a
I got
year and a half
moved into
ago,
the
yeah.
media partner deal. But yes, at the back end of it, correct.
What was released, some of it I didn't understand, and it said something about the gold something or other, which I took to mean, as did a lot of people, that no longer will the practice and qualifying be streamed live.
Yep.
That you were going to have to buy the privilege to watch that. Is that true?
I think what you mean is streamed live exclusively on the IndyCar website and the app. And let me back up for a minute and just talk about the deal maybe more broadly, because it might set the
good.
stage a little bit better.
Good.
First of all, we couldn't be happier to have NBC as the home for IndyCar from 2019 through 2021. We're very, very excited about that. We know how great a job they have done and will continue to do, and we're just thrilled that we have the opportunity to work with them on an exclusive basis going forward. For a variety of reasons. One, I think one of the most exciting elements, and I think IndyCar fans in the room hopefully agree, is that it's a great opportunity to have IndyCar racing on one home. It means a lot for the series in terms of exposure, continuity. Fans that may be new to the sport might know exactly where to go now to find our product, which we think is the best racing in the world. So it's just a great opportunity. In addition, we're certain that doing that will mean increased exposure for our series. That was critically important when we were looking for the broadcast partner from 2019 forward, and we think we found that in one of the best broadcasters in the world, in NBC Sports Group. So we're very, very excited. And then, like you said, this is our first direct-to-consumer, over-the-top offering opportunity, and I think that's the future of media. And, you know, you're seeing now the cord cutters don't necessarily want to just watch linear television, and a lot of people, like my kid, doesn't have any concept of being in front of a television at a certain time to watch a show. They want everything right away, on demand, and they want to be able to watch it again and again. And we think that the direct-to-consumer, over-the-top offerings are the future. And so we're happy to have an opportunity to learn more about that and develop NBC Sports Gold, the IndyCar product on that, and it's just a tremendous opportunity for us, and we couldn't be happier. To answer your specific question, I don't know that it's true that you won't see any streaming on IndyCar website or the app, but I can tell you that it is our intention to really develop and improve the NBC Sports Gold product for NBC and us, because we think in the long run it's most beneficial to our diehard fans. I think you'll see with what NBC Sports Gold has done and will continue to do with the Premier League, with rugby, with other sports. I think that it will really enhance what you might have seen on the IndyCar website or app, and even on cable in some respects, because you'll get a more fully developed product in many instances on NBC Sports Gold, and you'll see a more complete picture of things like practices, and there'll be a more polished product perhaps on NBC Sports Gold. So we think in the long run, although it might take some time to get used to, it'll be much better for diehard IndyCar fans.
The thing that concerns me, and I think IndyCar should be interested in that as well, is the IMS production audio and streaming. Last year drew close to 20 million viewers. And to think that could go away because somebody doesn't want to spend $20, I went, boy, that's bad. That's not good.
I understand. I just think that you have to remember the resources that NBC brings to the table, and they've been doing this quite a long time, and they've got a much broader reach than we might on the website and with our own app. And so there's a method to the madness, and if it happens, I think you'll see that the finished product is very, very good and something that all IndyCar fans should be proud of.
Mark, does IndyCar, when they first started telecasting live baseball games and afternoon games, and everybody said, geez, nobody will go, they'll stay home and watch it on television. Not true. Is IndyCar finding that even with televised events, when they come to your area, that a fan who's been watching said, I want to go see the real McCoy?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you've got two products you got to think about, right? You got to think of the at-track experience. One of the things that, we get from a research standpoint is what attracts people to the track itself is the sight, sounds, and smells, right? It's that all-inclusive experience. And what we hope is through the program that they've done with NBC and the amount of promotion that they're looking to put behind it, the quality of the production, that when it does come to your town, that drives you out to go and watch it. But there's also a new consumer. I mean, I'm a cord cutter, and I never thought I would be. But I find myself literally going and watching just the things I want to watch, right? And so having both of those, and that's, I think, another great situation with Steven seeing both the promoter side as well as the media side, is that he knows what we're trying to achieve in both cases, and they can be complementary, right? So, we look at both parts of it. I think that we're seeing some events that are being very successful in Long Beach, and a polished TV product only helps that.
Well, one thing that impressed me was I was at Long Beach, and they said they had the biggest crowd they've ever had, and it was mobbed. And they announced Saturday that the biggest crowd for Friday and Saturday at Barber was that. It drew over 30,000 people, which for a Saturday is a big crowd.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Mother Nature kind of cut it down on Sunday. But the other thing that impressed me was when it was rained out and postponed, that NBC jumped on it and went ahead and televised it. Now, what they bumped off, I have no idea, because I don't watch that hour of the day anyway, so I don't know.
Right.
But they made the effort to stream, to put it on the air so that you could watch it, which I did.
They've already, over the years, I think NBCSN has been with us since, I think, 2009. But since I've been involved with it, I mean, I can tell you, they're nothing but true professionals and great partners, and they really care about the sport. And I think that that's critically important when you're looking at a broadcast partner. Things like being able to make adjustments with us, not just in the best interests of television, but in the best interests of fans of the sport, and making sure that we communicate that and get the right coverage for IndyCar fans is something that we're thoroughly excited about. I think, as you alluded, was demonstrated by the way that they handled the Barber situation.
And the other thing that intrigues me, and it irritates me at the same time, is the number of people. When I go to a race, I wander around. I look at girls, I look at food, I look at where they're selling beer. But the number of people walking, sitting with the thing in their hand, watching what's right in front of them.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and I never thought that would happen, but God, it does. And people want to see it now, and the ability to be able to pick up a car you want to watch from is I mean, I'm happy to just watch and smell, like you said, smell. If they ever go to electric cars, I'm dead.
Well, I think you just nailed it. I mean, I think that the ways to consume something like a race we could need to continue to increase to keep up with the times and the new age fan. I think that the Verizon IndyCar Series mobile app, for example, is tremendous. And I watch the race live at the track in race control, and I've also got my app to try to figure out exactly what's going on the track. And I think that you making that point kind of highlights the significance of something like NBC Sports Gold, because it really is another opportunity for diehard fans to get deeper into the sport in a way that linear television and at the track might not provide. And I think you need to keep that in mind. And I think what you're seeing at the track is evidence of how strong something like NBC Sports Gold can enhance the sport.
Well, I tried when I was in Long Beach to try and watch the app, but it didn't work. I couldn't get it to work. Are they going to solve my problem?
Look, I'm not coming back if you're going to complain. Somebody's got to keep him in check. No, I think listen, that can happen, but I think all of our venues are really trying to improve the mobile capability. I know that we spend a lot of money at Indianapolis Motor Speedway making sure that mobile access is top level. But yeah, I mean, like all technology, there can be hiccups.
Well, you got to understand, number one, I'm old. And the thought of a cell phone when I was your age, what? Or internet, what the hell was that? When they told me that I could do our program on the internet, I have no idea what they were talking about. And here we are, and I got two geniuses that put us live on YouTube and all that kind of, I haven't a clue how we got there, but we are. How much input does IndyCar have when IMS Productions is trying to put something together? How much input do you have? Say, here's what we'd like to see. Here's who we'd like to see doing it. Do you have any input at all?
Well, I think it's important to note that Steven is part of IndyCar, right? So he is right there with us, and you know, Holman Motorsports is a combination of obviously IMS Productions, IndyCar, and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So it's really everybody working together. So, you know, I think that whenever that group gets together, everybody's got a say in it, right? And it's what's in the best interest of all parties involved, and that's a lot how Mark has set up this organization. And there's a lot of information traveling back and forth, but I feel like we have a huge say in it. And it's great having Steven there to talk about it and represent us.
And you know, from a broadcast or television or cable perspective, you know, I think that the people that produce the events and including the folks at NBC, you know, they've forgotten more today about motorsports than someone like me could ever know. So the point I'm making is, you know, they're real motorsports fans who know exactly what ought to be covered and the exposure that ought to be given to events that happen in the sport. And so I think that that's critically important, that motorsports people who've been around motorsports a long time are the leaders when it comes to the production and the broadcast of our series.
Is Terry Lingner still producing?
Yes.
Yes, and he's one of the first that ever did it.
That's a perfect
the best
example.
in the business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Something else that's disturbed me, and I've been accused of being disturbed for many years. And I got in an argument with one of the producers at ABC one day. I said, "Why don't you promote the event?" "Oh, we promote events people will watch." "Well, if you know they're going to watch it, why don't you promote one that you're not so sure and want them to watch?" I said, "The funny thing will happen if you do that, and the rate card goes from here to here. Isn't that what you're trying to do?" And she said, "I don't know," and walked away. It's bothered me, and maybe NBC, you had mentioned promotion now. Is NBC going to promote the upcoming events on both the network and NBC Sports Network?
Yeah, I think that's the plan. I mean, we're part of their, you know, championship season. You know, they've got, you know, things like the Olympics, Tour de France, British Open, French Open. They've just got, you know, big events, you know, Triple Crown. I mean, and so
Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, well, that's part of that. And you know, I think that, you know, the plan is to use the Indy 500 to promote that stuff, and to, for our purposes, use those big events to promote the 500 and the Verizon IndyCar Series. So I think that we're going to be a big part of that, and that's one of the advantages of going to NBC. And I think this is not in any way meant to to disparage anything that ABC did, because we think that they did a tremendous job and have been an exceptional partner. I mean, you know, broadcasting the Indianapolis 500 since I think, 1965 is something that, you need to really, really take note at. That's a tremendous partnership that's, unheard of in sports. So, but I just think that we feel that there are some great things that NBC can do, and we've talked about exactly that type of promotion, and has us very, very excited. And most exciting to us is the fact that NBC is very excited about it.
It's always seemed to me how difficult and costly is it to put a stream across the bottom. Upcoming IndyCar event Saturday at 2 o'clock and on NBC Sports Network. If they've done it, I haven't seen it. But again, I don't spend all my lifetime watching television. Mark, what's ahead for IndyCar? What is the goal that Mark and the other Mark Miles and Jay Fry have put that they want to attain 3, 4, 5 years? And I'll back up a second. The former head of IMS Productions, Buddy McAtee, was a guest on my program before he got ill, and he said, I'm going to tell you, within 5 years, network television will be a thing of the past. It will be on the internet. You'll be able to find it in a million other ways. And he's right. It's exactly what happened, almost to the time that he said it would happen. Now, NBC is obviously going to put, I think, 8 of the events on the network, which is great, so people don't have to stumble around trying to find.
It's amazing.
So that'll be a help. Plus, they can tell you, You want to watch next week's races on NBC Sports Network, you'll find it here. So people will find it. It's amazing to me that a lot of people still don't know the damn thing exists. What's NBC Sports Network? Well, it's a pretty good sized thing, and they do a lot of sports, and it seems that NBC really wants to get into the sports, and I have a feeling they want to try and get past ABC and ESPN.
They're huge into motorsports already, and I think that they think that our product can help them grow and help our series grow. And so I think that you mentioned one of the biggest part of the new NBC deal. I mean, 8 broadcast events is almost half of our events throughout the series, and it's huge. I mean, the Indy 500 plus 7 more, that's a total of 8. That's up 3 from what we have now, and that's a big deal to be on broadcast. And so we're very, very excited. And then we're already seeing now with 12 of the 17 events this year being on NBCSN, what a great job they do on NBCSN. So there's not a big drop off at all, but in terms of the content. But we think that the exposure that having 8 events on broadcast brings is something that it's really, really, really exciting.
As a former basketball player, are you getting all pumped up for racing?
It's funny. Like I didn't grow up a diehard racing fan. I watched obviously the Indianapolis 500-mile race every chance I could every year. But yeah, I think just learning the business of racing is really, really exciting to me. And then through doing that, getting exposed to the speeds. And I gotta say, unlike any sport I watch, or any sport that I don't watch, I think our paddock and our drivers are some of the most remarkable, personalities and individuals, just intelligent, capable people that are very, 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 very good when it comes to representing a brand. And so if for nothing else, not to mention the excitement of our sport, but just the people, the drivers that represent it, make you really, really want to follow them and learn their story and their background from week to week. And so I think the answer to that question is yes. It's kind of stolen my heart.
It's amazing. You said you have dealt with professional athletes, and I think from my experience and a lot of others that there isn't a more friendly, a more approachable athlete than a driver. You try and talk to an NFL player, if you don't have a camera or a microphone, they're not really all that thrilled. There are exceptions, of course, but I have bought 5 Hondas since watching Hinch do the Honda. I bought 5. I said, the guy's so good, I got to buy 5 of them. And you think the guy's an athlete, he's a hell of a good driver, and he can do that. It's amazing. So the people they have in the sport, I think, are second to none as far as not only the talent and what they do, but the personalities that they have is phenomenal. And do you, from IndyCar standpoint, try and influence CJ? We need to get out. Because as I mentioned to Stephen earlier on when we were talking, that several people I know in the Phoenix area said, if you didn't send us anything, we didn't know there was a race. Now, I know they took drivers there, but I think they took them there in December or something. It was kind of early. Do you guys work with them and say, let's try and get this to happen so we get more folks?
Yeah, it's a little bit interesting on the competition and operations side because we do work with them very closely. But a lot of it is more about the car, right? And so we took them through the process that we had in terms of the 5-year plan of developing the new car, testing the new car. Anything before it happened, we worked with them so that they knew that it was coming down and that they could also prepare for it and promote it. I think you saw that with a great job they did at the Detroit Auto Show. So the driver side of it is something, we couldn't agree more with what Steven said. I mean, whether it's Joseph Newgarden or I think when I was on your show last, Alexander Rossi was here before he won the Indy 500, and they're all exceptional personalities. They're all very bright. What we get a lot of in terms of working together with PR and marketing is more around the car itself. Again, not to discredit that portion of it, the human portion, but that's really where we work and focus and try to tell the stories that we're seeing from engineering. So, passing and capability to get close, speeds, new developments we have in that regard.
Well, we were talking, I think maybe before you got here, I can't remember. The drivers that I've talked to, number one, love the new car because they have to drive it. And somebody said in an interview that when they went to Phoenix the first time, and he'd been there a number of times, first time we had to use the brakes.
Yeah.
You have to drive the car, otherwise you're in a fence. And the other thing that they keep saying is, we'd like a little more horsepower. Well, I think the new engine, I was told, is going to give them about 100 or 125 more horse when they can redo the motor, which that in itself dazzles me, because you think, an internal combustion engine's been around a long time. How can you improve it? I don't know, but they do.
Yeah,
All the time.
Yeah, so that's something that we have planned. So when the new engine formula is introduced, it will immediately increase in 100 horsepower, and towards the end of its life, it will be 200 horsepower more. So you're talking just about close to that 950, maybe a little bit higher mark. So the part that I find intriguing about that is all the planning that then goes behind it, right? So understanding everything that has an impact on. So your brakes, your wheels, your suspension. That every time you make a change like that, it has a trickle-down effect. So there will be more horsepower. I know the drivers even said when they got in this car, because the amount of downforce that was removed from it, it already felt like they had gotten an increase in horsepower, which was great to hear. And I think you're right. The feedback has been very positive. Now, a lot of that has to do with Jay, Bill Pappas, other folks on the team, Tino, talking with drivers before this was developed. What do you want to see out of a car? The car is for you. So what do you want to see? And a lot of the feedback was, we want this thing to be harder to drive. Let's separate ourselves on driver ability. We want it to be able to pass easier. And I think they've done just a masterful job at that. And I think visually, we also said we want to have some of our identity back, right? We want to have that low engine cover. We want to have that IndyCar look. And so that team just did an excellent job working with DeLara and designing it. But again, I think the reason the drivers' feedback is so positive is because we consulted them not only beginning, but throughout the process.
Absolutely, and that's where I have said many times that I think Jay Fry is the perfect guy. Having been a team owner, he knew when he had a problem, did anybody listen? Sometimes no. Most likely, most of the time, no. So he is willing to listen, and you can sit him down, and even I can call him. I got a question. Sure, yeah. I got time. He'll answer it, and he's given these guys what they said. Here's what we want to do to make it more fun, and I think they've done a great job. I think the idea with the less downforce makes it possible to run closer and pass without having all the air taken off your car, and you lose control of it. You can lose control by yourself, as Tony Kanaan has found out. You don't have to have anybody around you to do that. But I think, overall, when you were here the last time when Alexander was here, I've tried to get him, I was told today it might be July or August. He went from a time that nobody knew who he was to he's on the road constantly, which is great. He's a great representative ambassador for the sport. And I think he found when he came here, he got more people know him in the first year he was here than knew him when he was in Formula One, because he was back in the dust where, so I think he's a great addition. Hinch is great. I think the new the rookies, and I'm trying to get 2 or 3 of them in here, the new rookies.
Sure.
As Will Power said after Phoenix, they think, pushover of the rookies. No, it's not. These guys are all good. So it's going to be an interesting season. I think it's going to be a very interesting 500.
Yeah, I agree.
So what's next for you?
So I think, you had asked previous, what's in the future of IndyCar, what's next for IndyCar, and I think, that's in a couple different areas, right? So there's everything from scheduling, which falls with Steven. In that group, there's the marketing of the property. But I'll speak a little bit about the competition and maybe more specifically the engineering. We're working on a 5 to, I'd call it 7-year plan. So everything from the introduction of that new engine spec to looking at components that are on the car, anything that can be either enhanced or, again, and maybe it's back to being on the sales side for the teams, looking at ways that we can save them money, right? Because the more we make this affordable for them to come in and keep the quality high, right? So not dumbing down parts or things like that, but having good quality parts that maybe we can get at a cost advantage, that allows us to have happen what we saw this year. And that was 4 new teams coming in. That's more than 33 cars, slated for this 500, so that we'll get bumping. And I can tell you we've got other folks that are talking actively about coming in next year that are new. And so our focus is really laying out that plan so that if a potential team owner comes or even a current team owner comes and says, okay, where are we going? What are we thinking about? Are we going to change wheels in the future? If so, when? So I can obsolete my inventory. Those types of decisions are the types of things that we're planning out so that we can tell those folks, here's where we're going. And that resonates not only well on the team owner side and the potential team owner side, but Jay's also doing a great job of having those discussions with engine manufacturers that aren't in the series, saying, here's where we're intending to go. Does this make sense to you? Do you agree? And he's getting a lot more, let's talk further and let's see where this goes. So, you go back to his communication, he listens to the folks that are in the paddock, but he also goes out and solicits opinions of those that are in motorsports overall. And I think that makes a huge difference for us.
He was here, I don't know, last year or whatever it was, before they started the new car, and I said, I got some complaints. He said, what's that? I don't like the back bumper. He said, neither do I, it's gone. And by golly, it is.
It is.
And he said, one of the problems that the engine manufacturers we're talking about coming in don't want to do is spend $50 million on aero package.
Yeah.
So we're going to eliminate that, which he did.
Yeah.
Everything that he said he wanted to see happen to the car to make it look more like an IndyCar, he has done.
Correct.
Which I think, it's one thing. I can say a lot of things, but if you don't do it, it doesn't take long for people to figure out he's full of hooey. And now they're going to test next week the windscreen.
Yes.
Again.
Yes. So this time it'll be with Joseph Newgarden, and the thought process there is the first test was with Scott Dixon, obviously. A legend, if you would, and a Honda driver, Joseph Newgarden being the latest champion and a Chevy driver. So let's continue to kind of balance this out, get multiple inputs. This will be at the Speedway, so a completely different dynamic. But we're going to continue through, and much like we talked about the 5-year plan, there's a plan around this windscreen to make sure it is properly vetted, get enough feedback, and then look at an implementation timeline for it.
Well, to me, and I'm no engineer by any means, but the thing that Formula One with that halo makes no sense. Because you got something first in front of the driver, which they claim once you get used to it and that's probably true, but it's still there.
They have gotten a lot of flip-flop sponsors.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that, but yes,
so
it's been a benefit.
Good. If it saves a life, good. That's the whole idea. Stephen, are you guys looking to increase the number of events a year? Do you have a goal like in 2 years we'd like to have 20?
No, there's no goal, and I think that we're comfortable where we are in terms of the number of events. I think we are always making sure that we've got the right balance of events and we're in the right markets. And so, but we're taking a constant review of the schedule, but it's not intended to necessarily increase the number of events.
Well, there's some talk, as I'm sure in your position now you have heard more than once, Chicago, Kansas City, Kentucky. Any chance that they can get back on the schedule?
There's always a chance. I can tell you there's no immediate plans for those particular areas you named. We are, like I said, always open to conversations about the right places for us to race, and we certainly are always aware of balancing, markets and new events with the history and tradition of places we've raced before. That's important, but we've got to get it right, and so. But I can tell you that those three we aren't in the middle of conversations with about their return.
Well, I'm sure you read, as I did, and heard that there's some question about Phoenix. Now, they said the attendance this year was better than last year, which wouldn't have been too difficult. Are they going to sign up to come back? And if not, where would you look then to get another race for next year?
It's a great question. I mean, certainly, we're happy to be in Phoenix, and we'd like to be in Phoenix. But like you said, we've got to make sure that it makes sense for both IndyCar as a series and the promoter. And so it's too early to tell exactly what will happen there. But I can tell you that we think they do a good job. We think the event is growing, as you mentioned, and we hope that there's a place for us there and that it can continue to grow. But it has to make sense, and there's a lot of work to be done between now and the time we announce the schedule to figure out the future of that and other events. So we got to keep taking a look at it.
Do they consult, or you consult with a promoter and say, look, here's where we think you need to step it up? Because I mentioned several people that I communicate with said, if you hadn't sent me this, I didn't know there was a race. There was nothing going on. Do you sit them down and say, now look, here's what you got to do?
Or
we'd like to see you to do.
Of course. I mean, we certainly talk to all our promoters and we exchange feedback about things that they can improve on, and they certainly are quick to tell us about things that we as a series can improve upon. And so that's good. That's healthy for the sport, and that dialogue and communication is constant, and we like that. I hate to hear that that's the view of the way a few people might have felt about Phoenix, but I can tell you for the large part, we think that they're really working hard at it, and that's encouraging. If they continue to do that, then I think the event will grow, and they help us and we help them. And so I don't think that it's a function of effort or necessarily poor promotion. I just think that there's a lot of things to do in many markets today, a lot of things competing with something like IndyCar, and it makes it very, very difficult in many instances, especially when you look at the venue calendars. One thing people don't think about is there's one thing to have the IndyCar schedule to look at, but for each track we race, they also have a full calendar of events that they host. And so, in Phoenix's case, for example, they've got a cup race before ours. It's the same weekend as St. Pete, and then a few weeks later, we come to town, and that's a lot. And then there are other places on our calendar that have more events and more of a compact time frame. And so all of those are factors when it comes to competing for fan attention to get them to an IndyCar event. And so those are the kind of things that we look at as part of the puzzle when we're figuring out the IndyCar schedule, because it has to make sense for both us and the other things that are going on at the track and in the market more broadly.
Such as a World of Outlaw event on the same night.
Exactly. That's the kind of thing that, you can always, there's concerts, there's just a lot to think about in the market in addition to just the venue.
Is IndyCar concerned that they can't compete with the NFL? Because they shut the series down awfully early, it seems to me.
I think that the way I would say that might be a little different. I think that, you really need to be careful about putting yourself in the middle of conflicts that exist before you set your schedule. I mean, it's one thing when things come up, but you need to be smart when you're planning a schedule about what you're going to be up against. And so we've seen what conflicting with the NFL does to television ratings, for example. Now, some might say, well, TV's not the only factor. If attendance is good, roll with it. But it's important when you're growing a series to think about the exposure and the way you're growing the sport through things like television. And I think, even NASCAR's ratings drop significantly during the football season. So it's not just an IndyCar problem, but to answer your question, yes. I mean, it's not that you're just afraid to compete, it's that you need to be smart about where you put your events. And again, you're competing for some of the same fans' attention, and you need to be intentional about the way you plan your schedule.
Well, back when you were probably still in diapers, IndyCar had a race again, and Jerry Jones scheduled a preseason game on the same night. And of course, Eddie Gossage was not real happy with that.
Right.
The end result is he drew 90,000 people to the race. Now, I don't know what Jerry Jones did because I don't care. But he said that SOB didn't watch this. And there's a guy who knows how to promote. Again, before your time, Danica and Dan Weldon had a little discussion where she smacked him with something or other. The next day, there was billboards in Indianapolis, round two is here. And they showed the picture. And it drew a lot of people.
I bet.
So, hopefully, now another one that concerns me is Pocono. Now, at Phoenix, when they ran the Copper World Classic and IndyCar together, they jammed the place. I mean, up on a hill there was, when IndyCar decided to move, both of them went. Same thing with Pocono. When I was at the first event they had there, and they used to draw great crowds, and it's a little touch and go, it seems to me. Is there any concern with Pocono re-upping when it's their turn?
Again, it's just too early to tell. No one wants to see an event drop off the schedule, and we will avoid that where it makes sense to continue. But we've got to take a thorough review of our schedule, and the events that aren't working are the ones that we'll have to take the closest look at. Hopefully, we can do what's best in the big picture for our series, and that means keeping an event where it makes sense for us, our drivers, and the teams and the fans, and where it doesn't, then we have to do something different. That's just the nature of the business. But it's just too early to tell, and we think, like I said about Phoenix, that the people in Pocono are really working hard at it, and we've seen some improvements in that event from the past few years to where it was like last year, for example. So, we'll take a look at it and try to do what's best for IndyCar as a series and the venue.
Mark, it seems to me, the people think when the season's over, it's all you guys go on vacation. You go down to Florida and spend 4 or 5 months, and what they don't catch, and when I first came, I didn't. I thought you just rolled a car out, put it on a track, and went out and raced. I didn't realize you tore it all apart and built it again. That in the off season is when your biggest job is, both from the PR and media standpoint and so forth. Because if the season opens and you haven't got it done, forget it. It's over with. So that's the time that really everything happened. The same with what you're doing, putting scheduling together. The off season, I mean, now you got to go to the race and make sure everything's working, but how many extra hours do you and the PR and media people spend in off season to get ready for the start of the season?
Yeah, there's we make the joke that, off season is just that, a joke. There's no off on it, right? I mean, it is just as busy, if not busier in many regards, because we're doing everything to prepare for the coming season, maybe wind down from the previous season. So that can be everything from recapping the season for sponsors. That can be, finalizing agreements as we come upon the termination of those at the end of the year. That can be just getting a lot of different things in place. Budgets, you're going through your entire budget, your capital expenditures. So there's a lot of different things that are taking place. So it's sometimes nice to get to the season not only for the racing aspect of it, but also to kind of get in a cadence, kind of get a little, consistent and repetitious in that regard. But, I would say the hours, maybe if you count them up, are about the same. It's just the way they're spread, right? So, the good news is you tend to get your weekends back, but your weekdays tend to be a little bit longer as you're trying to get everything done for deadlines. So, but it's also one of the things that I love and I enjoy, right? You get that opportunity to, during the summer months, you're out at races, you're out experiencing different markets. Yeah, 3 weeks, you're really not home, but it's a great experience, right? And then in the off season, you get a little bit of a chance to kind of change that up, work in the office, get some things done, look at how those plans are coming together. So, again, the hours are probably about the same. It's just the way that they fall. But it makes it interesting.
Well, when you first came here, you were out of college a few years, and you were just a young guy bopping around town. Now you're a married man. In July, your wife is going to multiply.
Yes.
So now all of a sudden...
Wait a minute, what? You're going to have 2 wives?
That's not exactly what I meant. See what happens, you get an attorney, they pick up everything.
Well, the sad part is she is too. She used to work with Steven,
right.
So yeah, I got an attorney. Yeah.
She's an attorney?
She's an attorney.
You better be careful. Yeah. Is she watching?
I'm sure she is.
You better watch what you say then.
I know.
And she's due in July. So
July.
June and July, it's hot, and she'll be saying, why you so-and-so?
Yeah, well, at least it'll be after May, so that's good. And it's right now scheduled to be Mid-Ohio weekend, which she told me, okay, you'll miss that, but it appears that you have a 2-week break beforehand and after, so it looks like it'll just be that period of time that I'll miss. So I've got to thank Stephen on the scheduling there.
You planned it that way.
Exactly.
Right? And there was something that goes on at Mid-Ohio I wanted you to see, but I guess that's out the door, huh?
Probably won't be there.
Oh, boy. Oh, well. But she's not going to have you stay home and change diapers. You're going to get to go to take the 2 weeks. 2 weeks is enough break for her for you to leave?
She'll probably let me leave, but I think she's still going to have me change diapers.
Oh, okay. Oh, boy. I think from what IMS Production has been built to, what it was when Robbie came in and took over, is now a world-class organization. They have the best equipment. They have vehicles stationed around. They televise I think the Lakers, and they go to events and provide the first-class equipment for whatever it is they do it, and they do a lot. What people don't realize how involved in other sports that IMS Productions is involved in, and they're scattered all over. And as I said, the equipment that they have is the best that's available.
That's amazing.
So they do a lot of neat stuff, and they provide a lot of cameras for a majority, if not all, of the events. They provide all the equipment for it, and then NBC comes in and waves to the fans and fannies and takes all the credit when IMS Production did it all.
No, it's an amazing operation. I mean, we had a staff meeting this morning, and we heard from Kevin Sibla, the new president of IMSP, and he said something that I think we see every day about the way they approach their business, which is, they believe they can do anything. And it's amazing. I mean, between there, I think they've got 6 high-definition trucks, mobile units that produce events all over the country. And it's just, it really is something to see. And so I encourage all the fans that come to, IndyCar events, if you really want to see something amazing when it comes to television production, I think you ought to try to find some time to spend in the television compound, and we'd be happy to assist so you can see that. Maybe not at Indy because that's a pretty busy time, but just if you're at another event. And I think, let me just comment on what you said first, Don. I think, Robbie Green did an amazing job. You know that, and I just want to make sure that everybody else knows the way he grew the business and the things that he did. I just think are amazing accomplishments, and we'll miss him. But we know that the company is now in more than capable hands, and Kevin Sibla is going to continue that legacy and tradition and do a great job too.
It's amazing when they brought him on board. IMS Production was hemorrhaging, and almost within actually less than a year, he stopped that and turned it around, and it made it grow. So. Now, do you being IMS Production and IndyCar, have any control of the broadcasters? I mean, the people on air.
What's the question? I think you've got a question coming.
Yeah, do you have any control? Can you say we would prefer so-and-so as opposed to him or her?
It is definitely a collaborative relationship so far, to be frank. I think, but the truth is, a lot of what goes on broadcast as opposed to what will go on cable has a lot to do with availability and the windows that are available, given some big events that the network already has, and we're trying to work together with them to figure out the proper cadence and flow and the distribution of what goes on broadcast and what goes on cable.
Well, I personally like Paul Tracy and Townsend Bell. I think because it's always interesting when something happens, like happened at, I think on Saturday, where the 2 cars got together and so forth, and he said, that's just a racing incident. Well, it turned out race control agreed. He said, that's nothing. I mean, the guy didn't hit him on purpose. It just happened, and that's what happens when you race. It's always listening to him. He said, I don't know what the problem is. I used to do that. And it would be putting somebody in a fence. Well, he got in the way. What can I say? Racing incident. Well, I enjoy listening to him, and he brings a lot of, interesting things. And then Townsend Bell is from a different direction.
Right.
And I think they're not quite the Bob Jensen and Sam Posey deal, which was again before your time.
Right.
But Sam would say something, and Bob would say, well, you're not even close. You're so far wrong, it's ridiculous. And it was kind of funny to listen to the two of them.
If you invite me to the show more often, me and you might develop that same type of relationship. What do you think? You might tell me I'm not even close, or maybe I'll tell you that.
Do not invite Stephen. No. As you may have heard of somebody when they said, you get to go to Autosport, lucky you. I'm positive for the series. I don't want to steal anybody else's thunder who wants to go the negative side. I stay on the positive side because one of the main reasons I love the sport. Yeah. I've been following this sport since 1962 when I first came here. Wow. And I've been in McGilvery's. I don't want to say anything because the owner might be here and say, really? I've been here about 28 years. Wow. So I'm still hanging in, trying to make sense out of this sport. But I think, in my mind, because I'm after a driver for next week, and that's who's answering me. I think it's the greatest sport anywhere, and I think the competition, the drivers, the teams are unquestionably the best in the world. Now, Formula One says they're the world champion, greatest racing, but they all run in the same track. I mean, they run in street and road courses, where IndyCar runs on 3/4-mile tracks, 2.5-mile tracks, and everything in between, plus street and road courses. And if you haven't been to Barber, you won't believe the undulation in that track. It's like Sonoma, only almost worse. It's amazing the facilities that are there and what Mr. Barber has done, building a racetrack for his motorcycles that now hosts IndyCars. It's amazing. Yeah, it's a fabulous. And if you get a chance, even if you're in the area, stop. You got to see his museum.
Agreed.
Holy Toledo. He's a motorcycle guy, but he also has sports cars. And I said, you have a full shop. I went downstairs and saw it. Why are you here? Well, he hits the fence once in a while. We got to fix the cars. No, it's a fun thing. And coming from the Ohio State University, were you a follower of? Did he wake up again?
Wow.
Howdy, will you put a bag on his head or something? Were you a race enthusiast when you first came here?
Yeah, I was. My father was a big race fan, and even when I was in elementary school, he would take me out early because we had spring nationals at that time over in Lakewood, Ohio. And, it's funny, I always remember going with him to those races. And so it was something that was always of interest. I thought I would probably end up more on the film side just because of school and some internships and things like that. But when I was at that school that seems to not be very popular here,
only with one guy.
I got an internship opportunity at Mid-Ohio, and that's really where I started. And I love the combination of business and I love the sport. So it's and then I was just so thankful to get here in 2008 and hopefully can stay here as long as they'll let me.
How did they drag you away from Mid-Ohio? I never understood that one. Somebody had a line of hooey, they sold you, and here you are.
Well, the scary part was I reached out to them.
Oh, really?
It was right after the merger, and I reached out to them and said, listen, I'm very happy with what I'm doing, and that was completely truthful. But if there's ever anything that opens up and if there's ever an opportunity, let me know. And 2 weeks later, they reached out and said, "Hey, we're hiring for a new position, which is working with the teams, but to try to drive sponsors their way." And I said, "That'd be fantastic." So it worked out. A lot of luck and a lot of fortunate timing and stuff like that. But it's been great.
But doesn't it bother you? You left and then Truman sell the place. Any connection there?
No. But Stephen works with Kim and Kevin, and they promote 4 of our races now, and they do a great job. And so it's wonderful to have them involved with the sport. I know they feel very strongly about it. They've made some things happen for us and just really helped grow it. And so Michelle was great to work for. Learned a lot from her. But that place is certainly in good hands with Kim and Kevin.
Oh, no question about it. And they know how to promote. Yeah. I don't think they call you up and say, hey, what should we do now? They pretty well know.
No, they do a tremendous job for us, and we love working with them. And, if they didn't, they wouldn't have 4 events. And they're just bullish on IndyCar, which is what you want to see out of a promoter. And I think it shows by the product they put out.
Oh, yeah. And the neat thing I think about it, when you're at one of their events, you find them. Yeah. You want to talk to them, they're there.
No, it's good.
I tripped all over Kevin down in St. Pete. I said, well, where's Kim? I've fallen over you 3 or 4 times. Where is he? Right. He was hiding somewhere, I guess. Well, I tell you what, I managed to commandeer you both for an hour. I appreciate you taking the time, although you probably didn't pay. I didn't see anybody looking at their watch, so that worked out well. And I am very happy that both of you were able to come. I thought it was a good mix. You may pass on to your fearless leader that, in one old guy's opinion, he's doing a bang-up job, and I think he's got the right people in the right place to do the job. I think the approach he's got with safety of the car, with the windscreen, you can't just stick it on the car and say, let's go. It has to work. It has to be proven to do what it does. And if I remember right, one of the only complaints that Scott Dixon had was it was hot in the car.
And I know we're already working on that.
I'm
so
sure you are.
It's but it's been great so far. So, and I'll certainly let him know.
And for you, sir, I appreciate your time and what you're doing, and you can be assured when something comes out, I'm going to call you and say, what in the heck does this mean? And get an answer.
Please do. I'd be happy to answer, and thanks for having me.
They're both the best in the business. Please, the Chief of Staff for the IndyCar Series, Mr. Mark Sibla, and the Head Negotiator for Promotion, Media, and Partners, Stephen Starks. Next week, I will have some drivers here, I believe. They should be rolling into town, and the beeping you've heard is a text, I think, from a couple of them that are a yes or a no. I hope a yes. But we're also going to talk about the art gallery in downtown Speedway that, believe it or not, I didn't know was there. And one of the featured artists is a young man by the name of Jim Swintel. His wife, Diane, is the head of PR for the Mazda Road to Indy program. Has been very helpful for me, and he is, as I said, part of the, here's another one, here's part of the race control for both IndyCar and IMSA, and he's a heck of an artist. He has a website if you want to look and see what he's done. His website is, very cleverly, jimswindell.com. Look it up. His art is really quite something, and hopefully I can talk them into bringing a piece of artwork with him next week. So until next week, Don Kay saying thanks for being here, thanks for watching and listening. See you next Tuesday. Good night. And don't forget, Thursday night, Behind the Wheel. It's going to be a good evening. It's $33 a ticket, but guess what? I got a pair. If somebody hasn't gotten anything recently, within the last 3 months, you're interested in going, there we are. And I also have a pair of tickets for the Unser exhibit at the museum, and I also have a pair of tickets for the Speedrome. So if you're interested in any one of those three, come up and see me. Till then, good night. See you next week. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mark?
Thank you, as always.
Love it.
As always.